Hi everyone, welcome to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center for GoLocal Live. I'm your host, Rachel Nunes. We have a very exciting day today. First up, we have our good friend, Billy Gilman, back in studio.
Hello
welcome,
again.
Billy.
How are you?
Thanks for joining us. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you.
So it's been a whirlwind ride for you. What you been up to?
It's been a whirlwind ride. The last time we were here, I was promoting the Dunkin' Donuts Center concert, so it's nice to have nice weather and no snow.
True.
I shouldn't complain. I mean, I live here, so you should be used to it. But
it certainly is a scorcher today.
Yeah, just traveling a lot, getting ready for a little mini tour up and down the East Coast for like 6 shows in a row. So.
And you said that's the first time you've done 6 shows all together.
All together. It's usually like you do a show, you do the meet and greet afterwards, and then you have a day of rest, one on, one off, one on, one off. But this is the first time they've been consecutive. So wish me luck. Wish my vocal cords luck. I've been trying to do everything I can to make them powerful and strong. So who knows? It's a little scary.
You'll do fine. We all believe in you here. You have all of GoLocal behind you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you. That's awesome.
So backing it up a little bit. Coming from South County, Hope Valley. Fun fact: me and Billy both from the same town.
She just told me. How fun is that, right? Only in Rhode Island is right.
Only in Rhode Island.
We probably went to elementary school together. That's a possibility.
So, what was it like coming from such a small town to suddenly be just vaulted into the spotlight?
It wasn't one of those cases of like stage parents, which happens quite often. I saw it a lot on The Voice too. I was always the one pushing them. Come on, I want to sing. I was always the one volunteering to do the solo. I was, so it was just what I was, I guess, bred to do, or it was, imprinted in my brain since birth. So there's really no memory of me not singing. So it just seemed like the natural thing. I never thought of like, wow, coming from such a small town to doing what I love, full time as a job. Since I was 11, I never thought about it because I just knew that's what I was supposed to do, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It's great to have such conviction. I'm sure most of us would love to be able to have that kind of a calling. That's great. You
just got to listen to it, I guess. I don't know. Mine was a little bit more in my face. I had no choice, no choice.
Well, we're glad you did.
Thanks.
And so what'd you do in the interim years? You made songs up to 2008, I believe? 2006?
2008 was, I released some singles, because then we, all started to get into like the iTunes, and the Spotify hadn't even been out yet, I don't think. If it was in its infancy stages. Correct me if I'm wrong on the comments below, which I know no one's shy about that. So I knew that coming out of, my voice took a very, very long time to change. And which is kind of normal if you're a singer. If you're just speaking, well, it's whatever it is. But when you're using your voice to all its capacity, it can take a long time. The doctors informed me. Wonderful. So it took a long time for me to get the confidence back, and it took me 2 years to retrain my voice to have its complete, from the highest notes that I could hit now to the lowest new notes that I didn't have as a kid. And I knew that when it got strong, that my voice really did not fit the country market anymore. It just, not that I didn't choose, I still love country music. It will always be a part of me forever. And but I knew that my voice was powerful in a way where they don't allow what I want to sing, which would be a Carrie Underwood kind of a song. They don't allow the men to do that. Only so many get away with it, and they wouldn't allow it. They just didn't get it. So with songwriting, I was doing a lot of behind the scenes work at that point. Coming up with what I wanted to do. How am I gonna change the path from Nashville to New York, LA, whichever one would respond the quickest. And around that time was when The Voice started to call, and I first ignored it. I'm like, I don't want to have to rely on a reality show. I don't want to do that. But then I had many meetings with record label executives, old managers, and they all literally said the same sentence: why not? What have you got to lose? So that's when I, decided to jump in and do The Voice, and I said, in order for me to do it, I got to do what my voice is now. I can't go back to what was. I have to keep on this path, and luckily the audience and the fans bought it.
So The Voice more came to you than you went to The Voice.
Right. I still had to audition one audition, but it wasn't like the, you're in the room of 50,000 people and it goes down
500
to
person casting call.
No way. So, but luckily, you know, I had to work just as hard as everybody else, and even more so to prove myself that I'm not just something that was. I'm something that can be still.
Absolutely.
So it was a wonderful opportunity. I advise anyone to do it if you want to try out. It's an amazing organization. They're fabulous. They treat you with the utmost respect, unlike some other reality shows. They're great, and I'm very honored and happy that I did it and went as far as I did.
So you had a great experience, and what did you learn from being on The Voice and training with such big professionals? You
know, what I learned was not about my voice. I mean, I've done this literally since I was 5 years old. I know what my voice can do, and coming out of the voice change, whatever. What I did was, what it helped me was trust my gut even more. Like, there were songs that Adam Levine, my coach, fought me on, like, you're not going to do this song. And I said, you know what? I got to do this song because it's speaking to me. I know the fans will respond. And one of the songs that I really fought hard with him about went to #1 on iTunes. So it really made me trust my instincts even more and made me realize that they are right.
And so what was your favorite song during the whole journey of The Voice? What was your favorite song to perform?
My favorite song, I liked all the production and stuff, but I loved going scale back. Like, we did all these big Show Must Go On, Queen, and Crying with Roy Orbison, big orchestra and background voices. Then we scaled it back down and just did a piano cello version of Adele's All I Ask, and that was so much fun, just to tell the story, get into the situation, and not have it be just, whoa, you know, singing. You know, it meant something. It was a story, and I loved that. I loved being the storyteller rather than just a performer.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about.
Exactly.
And so, so we talked a little bit about your tour. What's next for Billy Gilman? You've done it all. What's next?
Oh well, there's still a lot more to do. Believe me. Some really exciting. Finally, some really exciting things are happening. Unfortunately, I can't talk about them now, but they are very close. Watch them fall through now that I said that. But it's really exciting. New songs. Next month is all creative, behind the scenes, again, work, you know, new songwriting, collaborative works with some artists, producing for my own next project. So stay tuned. This couple of months before, up until now, has all been like shows and, you know, meet and greets and out there thanking the audience and the people that voted. But next couple of months is going to be for me to get in the studio, and because I can't do both. Some people can do it very well. I have to psych in on one specific thing. I can't let myself be 100% in the studio when I know I got to save my voice to do 5 shows or 6 shows or a charity event. So next month is really devoted to the creation of new music, which is exciting.
That's very exciting.
There's no you know, comments or anything. You're just behind a microphone with your band. There's no criticism. It's just, if you crack, you crack. You do it again, you know. So I like the creative process a lot. So I'm excited.
It sounds like a lot of fun. And so do you do a lot of the songwriting yourself, or is it a combination?
It's a combination. I think I'm 90% sure the next song that we're going to be releasing was not written by me. But it's a great song, so you can't be ignorant or egotistical, because if a great song is what it is, who cares? But next month we are getting some meetings together to write with some really interesting songwriters for this new project. So I will dab into it because I love it. I'm more melodic. I can do lyrics sometimes, but I'm more of the melody writer, which is great. So that's where my strength is, other than performing out for the public.
And so besides your tour, which you said will be all over New England area, a little
Jersey,
beyond.
Yep, you can go to billygilman.com to see where it's at.
And then you'll be back here.
I'll be back
South
here.
County Balloon Festival, back home.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that just got locked in. Yep, July 21st, I think it is.
I believe, yep.
At 7 or 8 o'clock. They asked me, and, you know, I was home. I said, why not? Anytime I can help out my home state, I love to. It's very important to me, and you have always been there, and I will always try to be there. You probably will actually be annoyed by it by the time I get done. But
Never.
That's okay. That's okay. But seriously, I can't thank everyone enough, and by doing that, and if they ask, and the moment's right and I'm home, I'm always there for Rhode Island.
What better place to perform than home?
Absolutely. It's easy. They know the score. They know the...
There you go.
They can sing along. It's easy.
All right, last question. Dream place to perform. Could perform anywhere, country, world. Where would you want to go?
Ooh, there's a lot of those places. You know, with this new creative endeavor that we're doing, there's so much more open. like there's, you know, you could do Radio City Music Hall, Madison Square Garden if you have a good enough hit. You know, there's so many spots, but like I don't know. There's too many. There's way too many. Yeah, I mean Carnegie Hall would be an interesting thing, but that really is more like I don't see my kind of music going to Carnegie Hall, but it's so huge. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Radio City or Madison Square Garden would be really cool.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye out. Billy Gilman, hit the big time.
Yeah, really big.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
And of course, we'll have to have you back to talk about these hush hush projects that are coming
up.
I
hope so. Keep your fingers crossed, everybody. It's pretty exciting. So.
Well, hopefully we'll have Billy Gilman back here soon, and you can check out all of his tour dates, new updates, stuff like that on billygilman.com. Or come to the South County Balloon Festival. Come see him for yourself. 2 weeks.
Come see me.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure.
And we'll be right back in just a minute with our next guest for the day here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.
That's a lot of words.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Go Local Live. I'm your host Rachel Noons here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Thanks so much for joining us. Up next we have Rob Wilson. He's the president of EmployCo USA and human resources expert. He's here to talk about a very important issue, especially considering some high-profile celebrity suicides in the last couple of months. He's here to talk to us about how to prevent employee suicide in the workplace. So thank you so much for joining us, Rob. Welcome to Go Local Live.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
So there's been a lot of, like I said, a lot of high-profile celebrity deaths recently between Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain. It seems that the list almost grows every week. What would you say that the increase, do we see a spike in suicides as a result, or just more awareness?
Well, it's been at a record high. The data is from 2016, and we have had suicide-wise, we've had over 44,000. Wow. But when you look at workplace suicides, 291, which is also a record.
Wow. And so, what can employers do to help their employees, help support them, and help prevent workplace suicides?
Right, and it's an issue in workplaces. In most places, people aren't trained with suicide warning signs. So depending if you have an HR department or not, you really want to talk to your employees. If you have newsletters, you can put something in about the warning signs. And you really need to be more aware in today's environment. You need to look at things like some signs. Is someone more withdrawn? Have they been talking about ending their life? Have there been financial issues? So I think we need to be more aware of personality changes and then react, offer to speak with someone one-on-one if you notice it. And if you do notice it, you should, aside from the one-on-one, if you have an HR department, speak to them because they might be able to intervene. They're more trained and anything they talk about is confidential.
Absolutely. And so has there, with the increase in suicides, as you said, has there also been an increase of workplace suicides as well?
Right. So workplace suicides, the data from 2016 was 291 that actually suicides that happened at a workplace. So whether it's at a workplace or it's a suicide of a coworker not at the workplace, you still have the issue at your workplace of I should have known, I should have the anxiety of what could we have done differently, how could we have prevented it.
And so what can fellow coworkers do to help keep an eye out for their coworkers? It's of course important for HR departments and employers to set up programs and be aware, but what can we do in just the day-to-day?
Right, and if a company has an employee assistance program, that great thing to utilize. But as a coworker, we just need to pay better attention to our coworkers. Look for signs that something's different. As a person, is there more drug or alcohol use? Are they moody? Are they saying unusual things that I want to end my life or my life is terrible? You have to pay more attention, and something that we might have 10 years ago blown off saying, he's just having a bad day. You don't want that bad day to be a really bad day. So really, see if you can step in and have a one-on-one chat or talk to the person or talk to someone in the HR side.
And are there any industries that are more inclined than others to see a higher instance of workplace suicide or suicide in general?
Yeah, it's one this year that kind of popped out as a higher statistic was New York taxi cab drivers. They've had six workplace suicides this year, combination of on-the-job stress, financial strains, but that one popped up as one that you wouldn't have suspected.
So even not as a coworker, say if you're taking a taxi, is there something we can do, like just talk to people? What can we do as a lay person just to help the people around us?
Right, talk to them. A lot of times they depending, are they suffering from depression? Is there some other mental disorder, or is it just they've been so overloaded? So I think paying more attention to your surroundings and your coworkers and not just coworkers, but your friends. When you feel something's off, that one-on-one conversation, talking them through, and how can you help make a difference to them and help them through their issue. That no matter what their issue is, they can get through it and help them find some help. There's suicide prevention lines. There's counseling lines. If your company doesn't have any, or even if you're not working and you realize there are some issues, there's a lot of different assistance plans that you can turn to.
And so there's individual employee programs in the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Are there any other resources we can point people towards?
Your feed cut out a little bit, but I think you're looking at other sources other than suicide prevention lines. There's local most towns and cities have local counseling offices that you can direct to. Most hospitals have medical centers in your neighborhoods or towns or cities. So there's a pretty wide variety. Your worst case, take your smartphone out and Google suicide prevention.
Absolutely, there's plenty of different opportunities that are available. And the way things are going, do you think it's going to get better anytime soon or get worse?
Well, you hope it's going to get better.
Of course.
I think the more that we can do to raise awareness to the situation, the more awareness we do and the more we talk about it, I think the more it's going to help with prevention.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rob Wilson. A very important topic, especially today, as we see an increase in suicides in the workplace and all around. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you join us in here in studio.
Rachel. Thanks a lot.
And we'll be right back with our next guest here on Go Local Live. Welcome back here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center here for Go Local Live. I'm Rachel Nunes, your host. Here with us now, Crystal Noiser of Rhode Island Resource Recovery. Welcome.
Thanks, Rachel.
And she's here to talk to us a little bit about food waste, which massive problem in our country and across the world. But tell us a little bit about food waste and especially here in Rhode Island.
Sure.
Tell us about it.
So in the United States, the Natural Resource Defense Council says that about 40% of all the food that we're growing is not actually making it,
Wow.
not eaten.
Wow.
And in Rhode Island, we're estimating that we have about 100,000 tons of food waste that is buried in the central landfill every year, to put that in a local perspective.
Wow, that's an incredible amount of food.
That's a lot, yes.
So what would you say is the biggest culprit? Why does food get wasted so often?
Yeah, so a lot of times people will think about it on a commercial scale and think, oh, it happens on the farm, and it does, and it happens in restaurants and markets and things like that. Totally does. But the majority of it actually comes from us in our homes. We're big food wasters, and that's really where we have the most control to do something about it. And so there's strategies that we can all use in our kitchen day to day to dramatically reduce the amount of food that's going to waste.
So what kind of steps can we as consumers take to help cut down our own personal food waste?
So one of the most interesting things that I find is that just being cognizant of how much you're wasting makes a difference. We find that most people think that they waste less than they do. And so we've actually done some pilot projects where we've had families keep their food waste for a couple of weeks in a clear container in their fridge just to see it build up and see how much there is. And just seeing that and recognizing that inspires people to make changes. So that's part of what we call getting smart about your food waste. Another important thing to remember is that there's a lot of confusion out there about expiration dates.
Absolutely.
You'll see all different types of wording on containers.
Yeah, we have use by, sell by, best by.
And then you actually have an expiration date on infant formula. That's the only thing that actually expires and has a regulated expiration date. Everything else is just quality that the manufacturer wants to put on to get the food in and out of the supermarkets. And so a lot of times we're throwing things out because we think that they're not edible anymore, and they're totally fine to eat. And another strategy is just shopping smart. So This is the idea of actually going for your groceries with meals in mind and a list that you've pre-made.
Instead of just buying willy-nilly.
Just going in and picking things off the shelf, that leads to us overbuying, and then we have a lot of food that we don't use. And so really being honest with yourself about how often you cook at home. You know, do you cook 7 days a week? Do you really want to plan out 7 meals, or is it something where you eat out, you eat at other people's households? Being realistic about that, generating a list of what you need, and then actually shopping your own cupboards and your fridge first. Oftentimes people will buy something, bring it home, they're moving things around in the fridge, and then they're like, oh, I already have that, right? So that's a huge way to do it, just with the smart shopping. Another strategy is smart storage. So the way that we store, especially our fruits and vegetables, can have a huge impact on how long they last.
Absolutely. I know with, say, strawberries, it seems you buy them, you wash them, you go to eat them the next day, and
there's mold
covered in
all
mold
over them. Right. So a perfect strategy with any kind of berries, they hate to be wet. So don't bring them home from the market, wash them and put them in the fridge. Just put them in the fridge. And then when you're going to eat half a dozen, then you wash them, and you'll prevent a lot of food waste that way. One of my favorite things, I cook with a lot of cilantro, and so if you just throw that in your fridge, it's going to wilt in a couple days. But if you cut it like fresh flowers and put it in water in your fridge, it'll last 10 days. So just even knowing that, and you can download storage guides online. You can get them from Resource Recovery's website. That goes a far way. Another technique is smart prep. So there's 2 things to think about with smart prep. One of them is prepping food so that if it's something that you intended to grab as a snack, it's ready for you. You can see it in the fridge. It's already chopped up. It's in clear containers. You're way more likely to eat it if it's kind of prepped and ready to go than if you have to do the prep at the point of eating it. I am totally guilty of this.
Oh, I'll do the same.
Yeah. If I put in, just at work, if I just put an apple in my bag, it will not get eaten half the time. But if I chop it up and put like lemon juice on it to keep it from going brown and bring it into work that way in a clear container,
convenient.
100% of the time I grab the apple and I eat it. And another thing to consider is food prep for your meals. And this comes in handy if you have like a late night at work and you had this idea in your head that you were going to cook this meal, but you end up working late, you end up in traffic, your stomach's growling, you get home and like a butternut squash is staring at you.
Do I really want to cook it?
And
not
a lot
really
of times
going to get takeout.
Exactly. And then that builds up over time, and then you have all this, you know, wasted food from that. So just like bringing stuff home from the grocery store, prepping as much as you can. It's one mess to clean up.
Absolutely.
One big prep mess. It saves you a bunch of time.
And then it's done.
And then it is done. And then the final piece of advice I would give is smart saving. So it kind of loops full circle back to that shopping element. And it's the idea of, you know, we have recipes, we cook with food, but we don't always use all of the ingredients up. You always have some leftover this, that, and the other thing. So when you're putting together your shopping list for the next week, again, look at what you already have, especially in the fridge. Keep an area of things that need to be eaten up and used up first. There's some great apps out there. There's one called Supercook where you can just literally put in, I have like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit. Is there a meal that I can make from this? And they'll say, oh, yep, you just need, you know, lemon, salt, pepper, and olive oil. And then you have a meal, and then you can use up those scraps. So it's really, it saves time, it saves a lot of money, and it builds these kind of skills in the kitchen that are much like, you know, when you learn a new skill with cooking, it feels good. It feels like you've learned something that's helpful to you, and it's actually really engaging and fun when we teach families how to do this and they start to implement that in their lives.
Absolutely. And I know also there's a big movement now of doing things like making your own stock and ways to use maybe vegetable scraps, things you wouldn't think to, like ends of onions, or let's say we had big seafood boil, we have a bunch of shells, like or chicken carcass, like instead of just throwing that away, we can make it into a stock or do something else with it.
Right, so this is the concept of how food is sometimes inedible, sometimes always inedible, and it depends on, you know, what your kitchen skills are and what you know about. So a perfect example is a stock. Another example is something like, you know, beet greens. Some people will buy beets, take off the greens, pitch the greens, and eat the beets. Other people actually saute, cook, and eat the greens. So some parts of, you know, I don't know anyone that sits there and eats the rind of an orange, okay? And they might like grind it up for a recipe. But there are certainly creative ways to use things that we've looked at as waste in the past, but we can definitely repurpose in our cooking routines at home, for sure.
And so going back a little bit to the whole confusing dates of expiration, sell by, use by, all of that. Which ones should we listen to? Which ones should we kind of keep an eye on? And which ones can we just ignore?
you know, everyone has to make their own decision about this, but the best indicator of whether food is good is your own senses, your own eyes, nose, taste, all of that. You can see, you can smell, and that's the best indicator. That's what we've, like, basically our bodies have evolved to be able to sense when something is not good anymore. So you can use them as a general best practice, but I know a lot of people who say, oh, it's that date and therefore this food is not safe to eat, and that's completely incorrect. That's not true. It's just, like I said, a tool that the manufacturer wants to use because they want you to try their product when it's at, you know, top notch, the best, most fresh quality, peak quality, and that's understandable, but a lot of people take it further and think, now I have to dump this, now I have to throw it out into the trash.
And of course, as well, the more we buy it and the more we say, oh, I can't use this anymore, I have to throw it out, the more likely we are to go back to the store, buy more, start the cycle over.
Yes. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So
yeah.
Smart marketing for companies, not so much for saving. And so when it comes to things like composting, how easy would it be for just the typical person to, say, start composting?
You can do it in 5 minutes a week. We teach compost workshops at Resource Recovery, but you can also go on our website and download a beginner's guide, and then we sell backyard compost bins at a discount. So normally if you went to the store, you'd probably buy them for $100 plus, but we sell them for $45 each, which is a great way to get started. You do need leaf and yard waste to mix in with your food scraps. You just can't throw all food scraps in there. You need to have a ratio of 3 to 1. Leaf and yard waste to food scraps. So fall is a great time to start if you've never done it before, to start for the first time. If you want to start now, you just have to get some kind of leaf and yard waste maybe that you've had piled up or from your neighbors, but that's a really important part of the process. You do have to collect the stuff in your kitchen. I really recommend people keeping it in their fridge or their freezer so that they're not worried about having it sit out for a week or having, you know, like any odors or fruit flies or anything like that. Just keep it in the fridge, and you know, maybe empty it once a week, give the compost a little stir, check the moisture, but really, like, your time into it, you can successfully compost in 5 minutes a week.
So what, besides the basic, you know, banana peels and skins and all of those types of things, what can we compost and what can we compost? I know coffee grounds are popular for composting, but what can't we include in there?
So in a backyard bin, it's not going to be big enough to get hot enough, to stay hot enough long enough to break things down like meat, dairy, eggs. Eggshells are fine, but the actual egg yolk, protein, like fish waste and anything like that. In a large-scale industrial compost operation, you can totally break down anything that was once living or part of once living, but in your backyard compost, you want to avoid that. And then anything that's fats, oils, greases, processed foods, you just don't want to attract any.
So generally more vegetable, plant-based.
Yep, definitely. Fruits and vegetables,
And so what would you say, taking a more global view now, you mentioned restaurants and places like that. What needs to change on the individual, say, like individual restaurant level, or even why? Like, what do we need to do as a country to really tackle food waste?
Interestingly enough, the skills that we teach homeowners, and we do workshops just for this topic, we actually derive them from skills that are used at the level of industrial caterers and restaurants. So just like it's important for you to take an inventory and know what you have before you're ordering or going to the store is similar to what the restaurant has to do, really planning out, monitoring what is being ordered, what's not being ordered, making those adjustments accordingly, just like you would have to do at home. The same concepts of properly storing the food, prepping, what can be prepped ahead of time. You know, all of those things apply to restaurants. So you can go into a restaurant and actually there's some great software that's out there to assist. There's some free from the EPA to help a restaurant go through and use this system and figure out ways to reduce how much waste they're making.
And more on a national level, what can producers do to help reduce there?
Yeah, so a lot of the waste that happens, say, on a farm has to do with the quality that is required by the purchasers of the, say, like oranges, for example. And so if people will only buy oranges that are perfectly round and bright orange and don't have any speck on them.
Absolutely Instagrammable.
absolutely Instagrammable, then that creates that demand, and then you have a lot of on-farm waste that no one will buy it because it's not perfect. And so even as a consumer, being willing to take the apple that's a little bit twisted or the orange that has a spot. I mean, no one wants to purchase something that is past, good or not.
Of course.
But the drive for this perfection of what that should look like is a huge driver for food waste on the production end of things. So we can make an impact on that as consumers by making different choices.
Great. And would you say things are looking up in terms of food waste as people become more aware of it, or do we have a while to go?
Definitely seen a raised awareness around composting, just in the number of compost bins that we sell and workshops that we do, and just interest in it. I think that now we're just starting to scratch the surface to get people to think more about that first level of, before I even have to decide whether this goes in the trash or in the compost, let me see if I can prevent it from going to waste in the first place. Eat what it is that I intended to eat when I went and made this, this purchase at the store. And again, it's not just about saving space in the landfill or saving resources. It's about saving time and money for you too.
Absolutely, because it gets expensive to throw away so much food week after week.
Yep, and you will feel good when you start implementing these things. The families that we've done it with, we saw a 60% reduction in the amount of food they wasted.
Wow.
Huge,
Massive.
really, really significant. And there was also just this feeling of having these new skills and being like proud of making these new decisions in the kitchen, or just using a new app to come up with a recipe or a shopping list app. People really enjoy the process, and I think that that's what really makes it stick.
Great. Well, Crystal, thanks so much for joining us. We
Thanks
really
so much for having me.
Appreciate it. And if you want any more information about reducing food waste or composting, or how you can become a food waste eco-warrior, you can check out Rhode-IslandResourceRecovery.com. They have all the information. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll be back in just a minute with our last guest of the day. Don't go away. Hi everyone, welcome back here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We're here with our last guest of the hour, Brian Heil. He's the founder of the Fierce for Shannon Foundation.
Yes,
Welcome.
thank you.
Thank you for being with
Great
us.
being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about the foundation.
So the foundation is based on my daughter, Shannon Heil, who was a competitive cheerleader. She died in a car accident up in Barterville. It'll be 5 years tomorrow. And so what I wanted to do is create a foundation where I'm investing into young people's lives. I give scholarships and grants, but I also mentor these kids too, and they're part of my life. And all of Shannon's friends who are out there probably watching, you're also part of my life too, and so grateful to have you guys in my life.
That's a beautiful way to honor her memory.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's pretty much the stuff that she would do herself. She would find unique ways to challenge her friends and do something that was a little over the top. For instance, there was a thing at the high school, it was called Pumpkin Wars, and it was always against the guys against the girls, and we ended up with 100 pumpkins in our garage at one point.
Wow.
And that was her reserves. So she was always a go big or go home kind of person.
Well, that's such a great way to honor her and to keep her memory alive. And so you said the 5th anniversary is tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, yeah. So I give a little chronological backstory. The first year from the accident, I knew that people were going to carry around some emotions, and usually it's not a very good emotion that you're going to carry around. And you're going to have memories, and a lot of it's going to be sadness. And what I did is I challenged her friends to go out and take that emotion that you have and do something cool with it, and to go out and pay it forward. And so I went and I honored all the first responders, because those people show up places that,
of course,
unless they're in your life, you don't really understand how much they do. And
that's what everyone says. You don't realize just how much they do for people, and how wonderful it is to have them with you in your worst times.
The Burville Police Department come and run my road race every year. And their family, those people are just amazing people to me and to my family and to my friends. And so the first year I bought breakfast for all the first responders, and the next thing I know, I've got Channel 10, Channel 12, Channel 6 shooting spots of me doing this. And then the following year, a friend of mine named a Pinkberry after Shannon. And so I spent the day in Garden City, Pinkberry. Thank you, Brian, I appreciate that. But I noticed that I really wasn't making an impact. I didn't feel like I really touched a lot of people, and I really felt like I was explaining what Pay It Forward was. And it was kind of troublesome for me. It was like, you know, there's a great movie out there about it, and then...
Absolutely. We all hear the phrase pay it forward, and generally you think like, oh, the person in front of me in line bought me my coffee, isn't that nice? But how does that connect to Shannon? Tell us about what you're doing with the Pay It Forward movement.
Well, what I ended up thinking, I stepped back a little bit and saying, I really want to do something greater. I want to do something bigger. I want to make a bigger impact. And so I started this thing called Shit for Shannon. And the next year I started the Fierce Mob. And it's loosely thought about as like a flash mob, that people would pop up in awkward places or unique places and do something cool, and then kind of disappear. And so I was thinking this flash mob would be a cool idea for a fierce mob, where people would go out and join me at noontime on July 11th and pay it forward in your community. And it didn't matter where you were. You could be in Mexico, you could be in Venezuela, you could be, you know, in Brazil or in Rhode Island. No matter what it was at noontime, you could go out and pay it forward in Shannon's name. Because the first year after I started this Pay It Forward, this thing went global. And there are people all over the world. If you go on my foundation's website, which is fierceforshannon.org, and go under Share for Shannon, you'll see Share for Shannon Global. There's a map, and it has an IP sniffer on there. And so that is updated every time somebody goes on my website. There's a new dot that's put on the website. And
that's
so
awesome.
You'll see people that have been all over the globe are on my website.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm here to invite people tomorrow to go out and Share for Shannon. To go out into your communities, go out into your neighborhoods and find something unique, something kind of cool, and just pay it forward for someone. In today's society, we're struggling with finding hope. We're struggling with each other's political aspirations. We're struggling with, people. And what a great way to change and impact this world that we have today would be to do something for someone else. I'll give you an example. I just came back from Key West, and I was at the bar having dinner, and this couple was sitting next to me, and they were sitting at the airport for hours waiting for their flights, and it kept getting delayed, and I felt their pain. And
there's nothing worse.
No, there's nothing worse. And so I reached over, and I had one coupon with me, and I said, "I'm paying your bill."
That's so wonderful.
And he was on the phone with a friend complaining about all of this. And he looked at me and he says, "No, you're not." And I said, "Yes, I am." Because that's an answer I get all the time is, "No, you're not going to do this for me." And so he started talking to me and he said, "I was losing my faith in humanity." and my hope in humanity, because the way he was being treated by the airline, by the way he was being treated in the in the airport by people, and he was losing his faith in humanity. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are like that, that feel frustrated with the way this world is being kind of lived. And so this is a challenge. This is the challenge to go out and do something cool, do something nice for your neighbor, but to remember Shannon through that. Because you know what? I have great hope and great compassion for my daughter. I love her dearly. And I have a lot of things that are just amazing through all of this, all these amazing stories and people I've met.
So what kind of things can we do? Is it
Oh, it's easy.
anything?
Anything. You could go to a drive-thru. Dunkin' Donuts is probably the greatest place, because I have a friend who's a manager, and he says, there's a lot of coupons that go through my Dunkin' Donuts. You could be paying for the people behind you. You could go through a toll plaza and pay for the next 10 people behind you. You could go to a car wash. My son did a car wash in Woonsocket, and the guy called me and says, this has been going on for an hour. It went from car to car to car to car to car.
You see that a lot.
Yes.
When one person has, say, their coffee paid for them, then they turn
Yes.
around and they do it for the person next to them. So it just kind of creates this chain reaction of good deeds.
People feel goodness. They feel good about what they just did and what the experience is. Because, you know, you come across people, you never know what they're dealing with in their life. And this has an opportunity to change their lens on life for that day, for that moment, but also, depending on where they are, it could change their life forever. Because it depends. Like, I ran into a friend of mine. She said, were you at this Dunkin' Donuts on such and such time? And I was. And she said, I just want you to know, a friend of mine who lost a baby has had very little hope in her life, but you bought her coffee. And she posted on Facebook, I feel good about life today. And you never know what you run into and who you're going to touch, because that little gesture could change someone's perspective.
The smallest acts really can have the biggest impact on people.
I mean, just think about going into a nursing home and picking someone randomly and sitting down next to them and have a half-hour conversation with them, asking them about their life, what you could learn from their life, from their children, from their job, from everything that they did their entire lifespan. But you've spent a half an hour with someone who are going to talk about that to all their friends, because they might be very lonely and they might not have family that come and visit them on a regular basis. You just spent a half an hour learning about someone, which would be so cool.
Absolutely. And so you have a road race coming up.
I do. It used to be in Lincoln Woods called the Fierce 5. It was in April, and we had snow the first year, rain, and then a monsoon.
Oh,
so
wow.
It took me 10 days to recover from last year's road race. So I decided that I wanted to move the race out of the rain, hopefully.
April's a very damp month.
Yes, it was horrible. So I moved it to August, and I moved it to Quonset Point, where I can offer a 5K, a 10K, and a 10-mile road race.
Wow.
It's still going to be fierce. I know there's going to be heat related, so there's still going to be.
It's always something in Rhode Island.
Yes.
It's the snow, or it's the heat, or it's rain. It's hard to find the perfect day.
Exactly, right. I have a friend of mine who honors the 22 kill. She's been doing push-ups now. I think it's been about a week, for almost 680 straight days. She's been doing at least 28 push-ups.
That is impressive.
Honor veterans. And so she's going to be there leading you guys into push-ups. So I would love to have all of us in unison just sit there and honor our veterans by doing that.
That's great. And so how can we sign up?
So you can go to fierce5.org. That's the Road Races website. Or you can go through my foundation, which is fierceforshannon.org, and there's a link there. If you go onto fierceforshannon.org, you'll see a film, and that'll pop up. That is my documentary about Shannon. It was produced by my filmmaker, Christian Durandis.
Beautiful film. I just watched it yesterday. It's incredibly moving, and
thank you.
It really tells your story.
It really is my story.
It's a beautiful, beautiful film.
The film has been in 17 film festivals. There are a couple more coming up, and we've won 9 awards.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. You know, for me, it's not so much the awards. The awards are nice, but it's people. It's having people watch the film and react to the film. And hopefully it changes something in your heart and in perspective on life, to look at life from a different lens. Because we all sort of look into this lens of like the way we should react to certain situations and moments. I'm not acting in that at all in a way that normal, I guess. people would react to, losing a child. To me is that I can't change anything about what's happened, but what I'm doing is I'm changing my perspective. I'm changing the way I'm responding to that. I could go into that whole sorrow and sadness route, but does that really honor my relationship with Shannon? Shannon would be mad at me. She would be so in my face, yelling at me, "Dad, what are you doing?" That's not what honoring her relationship would do. So what I'm doing now is doing the things that she would do, which, I think it honors her in a way that brings life to that relationship that we had. So that's pretty much what I do.
That's absolutely beautiful. So
No,
it's
thanks.
noon tomorrow, yes?
Yeah, noon tomorrow. Yeah, but if you're working at lunchtime, it's all day. I mean, July 11th, it starts at midnight and ends at midnight.
So we got to be nice to people all day,
right.
not just
So
for 1 hour.
There could be a 12 involved, there could be a 2 involved, there's definitely zeros involved. No matter where you are, no matter what time you are available, go out there and do something for someone else. Make a change in today's society. And just think of Shannon while you're doing it, because she'd be thinking that's pretty cool.
And where can we find these coupons?
So the coupons can be downloaded on thefierceforshannon.org. There's a link there under Share for Shannon that you can download the coupons. The coupons have no transactional quality at all. It tells the story of Shannon on the back. But the whole idea behind the coupon is that one day it's going to go from person to person to person to person to person. It's going to
hopefully come back.
It's going to come back wrinkled. It's going to come back with Scotch tape, maybe masking tape, maybe duct tape. I don't care. But one day I'm going to be sitting at a restaurant or going through a drive-thru, and my lunch or my coffee will be paid for, and I'll get a coupon back to me. And that means that coupon either went through around the world, went through a lot of different people's hands, touched a lot of lives, and came back to me. And that would be so amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your story.
Me a chance to tell my story. I hope you're out there. And I hope you share. Another thing too, I'm asking people to share their stories, and it's not to boast. It's not to go out there and toot your horn or anything like that. I believe we need inspiration in our life. I believe we need to see examples of how we're touching other people's lives. By no means what I'm trying to do is boast about what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is inspire people. I wrote a line, inspire, invest in humanity. Inspire each other and then invest in each other. And that's pretty much what I ask you to do, is inspire and invest in each other.
It's a great message.
Thank you so much.
So tomorrow, noon, get out there, do some good deeds.
Thank you so
Change
much.
someone's life. You never know who you meet. You'll never know what will come of it.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
So that's it for my hour. I'm your host, Rachel Nunes. Kate is up next in just a few minutes. She has some great guests talking about all the latest in news and politics. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. My name's Rachel Nunes. We're here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center for GoLocal Live.